Le sommet international de l'éducation du futur réunit une soixantaine de conférenciers du monde entier. Des pionniers et des innovateurs issus du monde de l'éducation, bien évidemment, mais également des êtres inspirants, issus des chemins de sagesse ou des chemins d'apprentissage et de créativité dans différents domaines. Les arts, les sciences, l'économie, le lien avec la nature, le sport, etc. Des expériences et des chemins de vie qui sont un formidable enrichissement pour le monde de l'éducation. Le professionnalisme des traductions, en simultané, et l'incroyable richesse de toutes ces conférences offrent un horizon de point de vue vaste et varié, très complet, qui en font au final une véritable formation professionnelle pour les enseignants, les éducateurs et tous les professionnels de l'éducation, mais également une formation à la parentalité consciente et une formation individuelle à la vie consciente. Face à toute cette richesse et aux divers retours, nous avons décidé d'offrir toutes ces conférences à tous, partout dans le monde, en français et en anglais, quelquefois en allemand et en espagnol. Découvrez la vision d'acteurs audacieux et influents du changement, vers un monde éthique, solidaire, généreux et profondément respectueux de tous, des cultures, des peuples, des règnes et de la planète. Un incroyable panel de conférences, couvrant toutes les dimensions de l'éducation, pour un futur ayant du sens, une humanité épanouie et une terre qui respire. Une chose est sûre, votre vie, et à travers vous, celle des enfants, ne sera plus la même après avoir écouté toutes ces conférences. Pour avancer, nous avons besoin de vous, nous avons besoin de votre générosité solidaire. L'organisation du sommet et l'édition des conférences ont nécessité des milliers d'heures de travail et nécessitent encore beaucoup de temps et d'investissement. Nous faisons appel aux dons libres et spontanés pour compléter le financement du sommet et, si possible, continuer à l'enrichir de nouvelles conférences. Votre soutien est vraiment précieux et vital pour aller jusqu'au bout de cette aventure extraordinaire. Merci.
I'm very happy to welcome Raymond in this international meeting. I met him in the framework of my research on the internet while preparing this summit. I was contacting different people through Facebook. I was watching different websites. Well, maybe was it during a research on mindfulness and sports, and he was. I was very astonished, so I called him. We talked a few times over the phone, and I'm very happy. I did a lot of sports. I called it a state of grace. The days where you're on your ski, everything is easy, you think you're flying. And this state of grace, while I was teaching, I realized that it was accessible to all people. You're not supposed to be a high-level competitor to live that, to experience that. Anyone can experience that. It is not related to a technical level, but related to an attitude. I found it very interesting. And I thought it would be interesting to share this in the framework of an education summit, as sports is an important part of education. And it's important to understand how this state of grace work and how we can help others to reach it. Thank you for being here and sharing your experience with us. And take us to the flow. Go on, go on. It's a challenge indeed. Well, first of all, I will take an example. I was reading in local newspaper, a local biker, Adrien Petit, ended 6th of Paris-Roubaix. So I know very well this race. And he said, well, I'm in this race. I'm in a state of grace. It's extremely difficult, long. It's made of cobbles. It's really a hard race. But he says that when I'm in Paris-Roubaix race, I fly. I feel like I'm flying. Something special happens. It's the only one where he can't explain it. We had several discussions on the topic, and it's really interesting. We are at the heart of the topic. It's a bit mystical, you know, when you talk about a grace state. It's something that exists in the sports vocabulary. You talk about sports, but not only. This state can be found anywhere. You took the example of ski, but someone who sings can have it. Someone who paints can also can feel that too, and doesn't feel the pain when this person has been doing their activity for I don't know, 15 hours, and you don't know why. You don't know why it happens. There are a few scientific backgrounds around that, but there is no precise, concrete answer to it. At least materialistic science does not. But post-materialistic science may provide new thought path on this state of grace that makes everything simple and nurturing at the same time. If I take the example of the guy on his bicycle, when he talks about it, you see his eyes shine, glow. I don't know. He is extremely tired after a 6-hour race, but he still has that fantastic look. Well, actually, out of his bag, his eyes are beautiful, glowing. It's beautiful to see. It's really magical. That's something very powerful. These types of moments are extremely powerful. I recall last Sunday, just after the race, you do not have the impression that he has just done such an achievement. And knowing him, he took no products, illicit products. So it's a little bit mysterious. That's why I find it such an exciting topic. It's our human nature that reveals itself through these states of grace. Laurent Voulzy, the singer, also explains that he has a sort of antenna on his mind, and that it comes, the inspiration comes. I know many people contact me and tell me we would like to be in the flow or to be in the zone. entering the zone, the area. It's a term sports people use. If you enter another stage of consciousness. What is this zone and this area? So what does science say? Okay, I'll tell you a few words. What does science say about it? I will make a link with science, but also researches that are made by the network Mind and Life, created by a Dalai Lama, and who observed doing MRIs of people who are meditating. One of the characteristics of people who meditate for long hours is that they enter that state of grace, or what is called, I don't like the term mindfulness. I prefer to use presence-fulness rather than mindfulness. When you are in that state of grace, you are in presence-fulness, and you let go, you let it be. I am very much focused, and at the same time, I haven't the impression to make an effort. I'm completely here, fully present, and at the same time, I do not need to make any effort. I'm here. The mental aspect I think about a book written by a Canadian calling about a hamster in your mind. Well, the ego is that. I am in a state where I'm fully here, but what happens concretely when I enter that zone? First, the ego decreases, the selflessness, the relationship to time. It's timelessness. It's a sensation of the time that completely transforms itself. If I come back on the example of Adrien Petit, he said, I haven't had the impression to be on my bike for 7 hours. For me, it was really quick. And I would have liked it to last longer. He rode 270 kilometers. It's really incredible. And he said, well, I would have wanted it to go further. So we change the reality level. Especially in sports and in other enduring sports. At one point, you don't feel the pain. The perception of the effort completely disappears. I can tell you about big hikings when you physically suffer. At one point, very quickly, something happens and you enter something else, some other state. And you cannot program it. You cannot program it. Except if you take chemicals, of course, but it's not the same state, the same effect. It won't have the same effect. So, to sum up, decrease of the ego. Adrien says, it's not important. Of course, I would have liked to win, but I'm sixth. I would have been seventh or 11th. It would have been the same when I was in the effort. I was feeling fine, so fine. There is a photo of him, and you can see the effort. But he tells you, I didn't feel anything. I didn't feel any pain or effort. So there's this notion of easiness. Surfers talk about it. People who ride horses, alpinists talk about it. All these activities foster, because of their link with nature, foster the emergence of such letting be.
Je rentre dans cette zone. Et du coup, voilà, pour répondre à ta question. Voilà.
To answer your question. So, your work is to take the young sports people, any individuals to that state. We try and talk about this state, but what can you implement to reach that? Well, that's the interesting issue. But it's a paradoxical question, because we are at a time where there is a form of scientism which is very much present, where you think that everything can be controlled. We're just material and we can control everything. And if I want to link it to this flow state, you think that you can control this state and be in that state at that day, at that hour. People who say they would like to be in this presence-fullness state during my exam, for instance. I often say, if you want to be it that day, you won't be there. If you want too much to be in that state, paradoxically, you won't find that state. I don't know if I'm clear. Yes, of course you are. Your own will cannot build that. So you have to stay in the intention. I like this approach of phenomenology in psychology. You're in the framework of work, the human work that cannot be programmed. If I had a message, it's that it cannot be programmed, but it can be instructed. You can create the conditions that will make that maybe the day I wish it, I will be in the required state, but I cannot decide it. You need to have the intention. Very recently, I was discussing with a young athlete who has a lot of projects for next Olympic Games in Paris. And he says that I need to be in that state when there will be the Olympic Games. Okay, okay, it's your intention, now you have to abandon the idea. But we will work so that on a more regular basis you will be in that state. It's a nice thing to have begun with the example of ski you gave, because when you go skiing during the week, maybe 3 or 4 times during the week, you will experience that. Just at one point, a few turns that were really fluid, and you very naturally you found the right movement, and you're completely, your skis were part of your body, and your skis were part of the snow. Works of quantum physics today show us that we are part of a whole. Works on physics of awareness, of conscience, explain it very clearly. We are part of this whole, but to be part of it, I have to be present, and the ego must be away. Be away and at rest. So, with your question, how can you learn that? Enabling people to meet this, to be in that state, to be aware of it, and to memorize it. There is a memory, a cellular memory. There is a brain in each cell. Everything is connected and everything has an intelligence. So our billions of cells have that memory. To take the example you gave of the ski, there will be the memory that that day, in that context, you were in that state of grace. And we're at the heart of the topic of your colloquium. It's the more you educate and give tools to people to make these moments conscious, the more they will be able to repeat it. Whatever the medal, I come back on the example of Adrien Petit, the glow in his eyes when he arrived from Paris-Roubaix was fantastic. And it has much more value than his ranking 6. What he printed in himself just after the arrival is what he lived during that race. I was flying, he said. I was not flying where I could not follow. 2 or 3 times I could not follow. What can we do? To take your example, what you did for me when you described what had happened to you while skiing, you memorized this moment and you're able to talk about it. You reactivate this memory. 2 days ago, while training athletes, I was with them And the group, it was a interval training session. And during 2 or 3 rehearsals, the whole group was in that state. At one point in the session, 3 effort repetitions, during 3 rehearsal repetitions, their times were better. They have no watch, they work with their sensations. And in the 10 seconds that followed the arrival, you saw what happened? You were in the zone when you were there. Yeah, oh yes, we were feeling good. Oh yes, I was feeling good. For the educators, teachers, trainers, whatever the subject, when a person experiences such a situation, once this situation has passed, you have to tell them, okay, there you were in the zone. That's what is called in education, it's metacognition. It's the ability to see you do something. That's a determining element, these events. It is not by chance that apneists, singers, who use their body in what they do, dancers, have such moments, experience such moments, because what we call intelligent training, i.e. the ability to see you do. It's mental visualization. And the decisive element is that when you live such moments, and we all do, but usually we're not conscious, not aware that we live that. It doesn't last for very long. I also make conferences in the lectures in the education sector. Well, a teacher once told me that it happened to her in the classroom. You can be completely linked to your classroom. Children do not realize it's time to go out and recreation. But very often this moment is smashed because other events, disagreeable moments happen during the day. The nice moment and this moment of grace or this flow moment, state of flow, was not memorized. So when you are aware that you just lived a moment where you were fully in the situation, you re-visualize it. Wow, if you think again about the moment you lived, the more you memorize it, what you witnessed, the more you memorize of these states, the more they will have them. But they cannot decide upon when it's going to happen. if you want to have it at a specific moment, it won't happen. Particularly in the Western world, we always want to control things, and it won't work that way. Did I answer your question there? Second part. And I will speak about full intention practices. We observe that people who practice full intention, full attention, meditation, sophrology, yoga, have more flow moments than others, states of flow, because they train. It's a mental training. They daily train to listen to their sensations without judging their perceptions. They welcome the perception around their five senses. The more I open my awareness, my conscience, the more I perceive the even invisible messages. What we witness is that people who develop this ability to be fully present and who have a full presence to nature, etc. Well, this is a perfect training to the state of flow, because this state of flow is entering a zone where you are in another level of reality. It is explained hormonally speaking. It has been identified that there is an increase of endorphin, epinephrine, dopamine. Biologically, it has been identified which are the hormones that are secreted at that point. Mentally speaking, you are in another reality. The more I will train to be fully attentive to what I do, the more I will be training to meet the state of flow.
La question, c'était peut-on répondre que mettre en œuvre pour accéder au flow?
Valérie, Jessica, on t'entend.
Pardon, excusez-moi, je me suis plantée de canal. Je recommence. What should we put in place to reach the flow? Yeah, sorry. So, what should we put in place? That's to say, being in the full intention, being present, and to let it go. While people always want to control everything, and we don't reach the flow in general because we want to control everything. And in the Western thinking, we want to control. And at a certain point, we should say, I let it go. And while you are letting things go, you will reach the flow. But what I want to add here, it's for the field of the sport, but it's also for other fields. The more I will train, I will take the example of Adrien Petit. So the more I will train, the more it requires a level of expertise in your activity. So you took the example of skiing. You need to be able to ski. If you can't ski, you won't reach the flow. And I think we should be aware of that. Sometimes I recall sportsmen that they need to prepare mentally, but also to train a lot. If you want to be good at math, you need to train. If you want to be good at French, you need to train. If you want to be good at something, you need to train. You have to do it smartly. And if you don't do it enough, you won't reach any of your objectives. What disturbs me in reaching the flow is that people believe that they will reach the flow easily. No, it's not true. They need to be involved, and often the most powerful flow states are reached in moments in which the psychological and physical effort is really hard. Sometimes there is a physical suffering linked to the flow. So people are suffering and suddenly they reach the flow. And they have the impression of flying. I remember of a witness of Paris-Roubaix. Paris-Roubaix is a cycling race, and it is a very difficult one because it requires a lot of attention. Psychologically, it's very hard. And there was a Belgian cyclist, and he won for the third time Paris-Roubaix in 1965. We weren't talking about flow at this time. He was speaking Flemish, and he said, I suffered for 250 kilometers, and suddenly, at 20 kilometers from the arrival, I felt something strange. I was flying. And he let things go. And when we are looking at the films of 1965, and he was doing a wonderful race before all the others, and all the others, they can't reach him. So the flow will be reached often after a very hard moment, a difficult moment. That makes me think to people I met in different domains, artists, singers, researchers. And I remember this painter saying that for hours he was waiting for inspiration and doing nothing good. And suddenly, after 24 hours, after drinking a lot of coffee, he reaches the flow. And he said at this time, I didn't feel anything. I wasn't tired. And it wasn't about drugs or other medicines. I also had several experiences, two that were very powerful in the intensity of the feeling, but also in the duration. So I am doing ultra distance cyclism. So we are doing roughly 20 hours of cycling on during 10 days. We are doing 3,000 kilometers during 10 days. We are doing it in the mountains, in the Alps, in the south of the Alps. So it's very, very hard. That's as if we were doing 3 steps of the Tour de France. And I was on the verge to stop the race because I was too tired. And I decided to stop and to drink a soup. And then I began to cycle again. The sun was rising and I was too tired to reach any objective. The objective was not to abandon, but I decided to just try to finish the race and nothing more. And I reached a second control point and I drink and I ate. That's everything that is prohibited. I ate pastries and croissant and coffee. And I do what my body wanted to do. But normally we shouldn't do that, racing. That's really not what is suggested to do sports. And then I decided to continue cycling and I had the feeling that I was flying. I was flying at the end of this part of the race, and this was filmed. My team just didn't believe what they see. During 4 kilometers, I was flying. And when you explain that to people, they don't believe you. I was literally flying 3 hours before I was on the verge to abandon the race. So there is this notion of difficulty, and then suddenly you have a feeling that everything is possible. And you feel a magic moment. And I was really struggling for this race. I was on the verge to abandon. It was a very hard moment for me. I think it was one of the hardest moments in my life. And after that, I had 40 minutes that were completely crazy. So, as you can see, there is this notion of a moment that is coming after difficulties, after after challenging moments. And I remember I was struggling, and suddenly I had this wonderful moment of freedom, because in the end I ate and I drank, and this was really not advised, because at the beginning I was planning to be high ranked during this race, and here I decided to finish the race, but nothing more. I passed the other competitors, and they told me, wow, we were seeing you, you were flying on the road. We had already cycled during 600 kilometers, and we were also in altitude, more than 2000 meters altitude, and this was not easy at all. We are talking about long distances requiring a lot of energy. And so I wanted to point out this notion of effort. There was a question about the Feldenkrais method. Yes, this method is encompassed in all these practices in which the body is involved. I think the Vito's method that is less known. This method has been created by the Dr. Vito's. It's a practice of full intention on the 5 senses. And this method will help to develop self-consciousness of our body, our environments, our emotions. And according to me, the Feldenkrais method is involved. And you are also working with very high-level sportsmen. So the training, the practice is completely different. Yes. So I can't explain all my methods, but I am supporting, not as a research director, but I am following the case. So I am supporting a researcher who's making a study on physiology, on the use of full intention practices during trainings, and on the effects of these practices on the physiological data. So it means that today, at the INSEP level, we are working on that. We are putting in place protocols that can be taught, and that will be applied during training times. And in the training times will encompass, integrate, involve these practices. I think many people know Thich Nhat Hanh, and when I met Thich Nhat Hanh, he was there, I met him, and I saw him. I was very happy to see him, and I say hello. And he stopped me and said, "You didn't say hello to me." And then I look at him, and then he said, "Now you're saying hello." And he said, "This is full intention and presence." Yes, I learned full intention while I was washing the dishes. So the full intention is realizing the moments, integrating these moments in my everyday activities. So speaking about the education, I trained more than 500 teachers, and when I was training them, I was telling them, it's not something you will do 20 minutes once a week. These are small instance, small moments, 20 seconds, 30 seconds, 1 minute, 2 minutes. But there will be plenty of these moments in your day, during your day. And for the children and the teenagers, so they will understand that you are there. And that's because you will multiply these small moments during your math lesson, during your gym lesson, during your French lesson. That's because you will encompass these moments, that you will develop this resource of enjoying the moment and being fully present. And no matter the age, we are living in a period in which we don't take the time to be present and to enjoy the moment and to listen to our inner person. And it's a problem, because one of the problems of our society today is linked to that, because we are not able to be present, to enjoy the moments, and we don't listen to ourselves. Neither are we listening to our environment. There is a book of Letty Bidard that is explaining this very well. So how to be present, how to enjoy the moments, to understand the environments. But when you are training sportsmen, at the beginning, they don't know that this method will change their life. Yes, I totally agree. And some will abandon the races, the competition, because they will understand this new dimension. And it's very interesting, this discussion, because thanks to this method, they will reach a self-consciousness. And when they will reach that, in high-level sport, they have large egos. They are training a lot. There is a lot of competition. Because our society is really a competition society. And some sportsmen are in this mood, have this mindset, and have these values of materialist, consumerist society. And the modern sport is linked to the values of industrialization and development of capitalism. There is a solid link between all that. And so they have huge egos. They want to control everything. They want to be the first. And when they reach self-consciousness, and they completely change when they enter the competition. When we are training, I say to them that they have to let go this mindset and change it. Some are not ready, others are doing it, giving more sense to their sport by developing themselves. And I am still thinking to Adrien Petit, saying, no matter if I am the first, the second, or the third, what I felt is just wonderful. Of course, I would be very happy to win, but the feeling I had was so extraordinary during 2 hours. It was wonderful. And from this point on, he changed his mindset. While a hyper competitor would say, oh, I was only 6 in this race, this is disappointing. And some are accepting that and others not. So some are really changing mindset because with the training, they need a sense in their life and they change, but other will just abandon because they have an ego that is too large. So everyone is not ready to reach to the flow. But more and more people know that and understand that. I am rather optimistic on that. On the short term, I'm a bit pessimistic because we are nearly changing civilization. We are at the end of a system and something new will come out. So there is a kind of a struggle between materialism, extreme materialism, and the emergence of a new spiritual human dimension. I am not talking about the religious dimension, but the spiritual one. And I am thinking about post-materialism. So that's where we are today. So there is a most important consciousness about this spiritual dimension. Also, spiritually and scientifically speaking, there are different studies showing that the flow and this state is a reality, but it's not visible. And so that's where we are today. We're going to switch. But it's a difficult period because in France, for instance, the education ministry imposed to the schools to stop meditation in schools. And so they decided to make full intention instead of meditation. I discussed with Frédéric Lenoir, saying we are doing philosophic workshops and we are doing full intention workshops. So we are doing it without saying it.
On va dire qu'on fait de la pleine attention, qu'on développe.
So they're saying that they're doing exercises of the trainings in order to develop skills.
Voilà.
Tu dois le voir aussi de plus en plus qu'il y a de plus en plus de sportifs.
And I think you see that many sportsmen are now in this dimension. Many were already in this dimension before, but we didn't talk about it. In France, we were a bit late on this dimension because it's culturally linked. It's linked to our anthropologic history. We didn't understand well Descartes, who explained that there is a separation between the body and the mind, and we didn't have this global vision as had James in the US. In psychology, James was in a holistic approach, or as the German Lagenstadt. So the French culture is a sectorial culture. And so we didn't really understood, and we didn't make the right links for Descartes, and for the sportsman it's exactly the same. So we are training physically, and we forgot the spirit. Are they conscious that there is a special state of mind that we can reach? Are the children talking about that? Is it known, or maybe they discover that when they are teenagers? 10 days ago, I was in a school, and I am supporting this school. And in this school, they put in place several tools in order to practice full intention. I bring new practices to them. The teachers were saying to me that sometimes they forgot to do the practice of full intention, and the pupils are asking for it. Pupils are asking for it because they are used to, while at the beginning they are not so involved, they don't believe it, and in the end they are asking for it. And when I meet people I trained some years ago, they always tell me that once it is integrated for many children, it is part of their life, and they are asking for it. But when the teachers forgot to do it, pupils are asking it themselves, saying, "Madam, we didn't do any full intention today." So, to answer your question, it means that the children, and I am talking about children from 5, 6 years old to up to 9, 10 years old, children really need that. Because today's way of life means that they have less and less free time in their life because they always have to do something.
Someone asks in which school there is meditation. Well, personally, since 2010, since I have been a freelancer, I have worked with 500 teachers. I work mainly in Hauts-de-France, also in Montpellier, Narbonne, and but I also work in middle school, public middle schools, and in public secondary schools, high schools. So I encourage teachers to use this in their teaching, to develop attention in establishments such as, or high schools such as, I don't want to quote them without their agreement, but I would like to talk about the city where I live, where there is a high school in Reims. I have been working with the dropout children to try and provide them with tools to re-engage in their studies. And we talk about youngs who are totally dropouts. So they go back to school. And for those who do their end of high school studies, they succeed. Who are the teachers who adhere? Well, people who have a global understanding of the topic. So primary schools, well, it works well there because they do many different things. So naturally, they care about the development of the children. So they are more open to these practices, maybe more easily than people who are specialists of their disciplines, of their subjects, and who are there to convey the knowledge related to their subject. I can quote a sophrologue who's also pedagogical advisor in a high school, and within the middle schools where she works, but she changes every 3 years, but anyway, she has sophrology activities at lunchtime for children, for these young teenagers. Well, this takes place in public middle schools. I also think about Abde Nourbida, who had a mission from François Hollande, who was in charge of philosophy, living together at school, and open layness. And he advocates for the development of a spiritual approach in France. So he is not always heard by other teaching inspectors, but he has a spiritualistic approach. There is a spiritualistic approach to the living. He was animating a program on the radio around these issues of transcultural, trans-religion, the spiritual dimension of the living, the notion of lay spirituality. Within the national education in France, which is quite materialistic in its vision, it has to be said. That's how cultural France is, culturally speaking. So there is an awareness, a rising awareness. Abdenour Bidar, we organized a conference together 5 years ago where we totally agree. And he says it as a philosopher. This dimension is inherent to the living, so you cannot ignore it. One of the causes of the ill-being in society is because we forget this sensitive aspect of human beings. At international level, is it taken into account in sports, this particular presencefulness? At international level, are there is there any movement? Is it shared? Yes, of course. Well, it is shared, and I have to say I discussed it with colleagues, people I meet in cyclism and other trainers or mental preparators. In other countries, I take the example of Germany. I know several people in the Nordic countries. For them, it's normal. They have always been in that state of mind. They have such a vision. I think about the triathlonists. I think about people in Norway or in Sweden who have that global approach. They have integrated it for a very long time. It's in their culture, in their understanding of the world and the living. In our French culture, and the fact that we separated the body and the mind and the heart, whereas the science is saying that the brain, the gut's brain, all this is related. There are medicine theses, intuitive conscience, extraneural intuitive conscience. There are theses on these topics. Okay, it will change things in France. Yes, it's a total paradigm shift. So people go to that, go in that direction. There are many researchers in the world around that, and things are evolving. But there is sometimes an instrumentalization of it. These practices are ill-used. I'll give you an example. Give us exercises to make them calmer. And I stop them. Okay, a child in kindergarten is a living human being. Please stop believing that you can calm it. You will learn to live with stress while meditating. It will not stop your stress. You will accept to be sad or angry, but you will not let anger or stress lead your life, but you will also be able to recognize moments of joy. What strikes me there is a philosopher who says that meditating is letting go. You can come. Some people come so that their employees be more attentive. And I often say, okay, let's see how your work is organized, how you manage people, and we will see if presentfulness is to be developed with your employees. And sometimes it makes me anger because sometimes there is an instrumentalization of these practices in a logic of performance. If we do that, well, it is for a better being of the people. What you share with us from the world of sports is really interesting and fantastic. It shows that things move everywhere in the world. People are increasingly aware in the world. It's a good sign, in my opinion. Learning to listen, to feel, to be present, things as simple as that are important. It provides some hope. I agree with you. Sometimes I share, sometimes I'm a bit sad because what we have been living for 2 years is not very joyful. I'm out of my topic here, but in a period of my professional life, I was teaching at the University of Lille in partnership with the University of Montreal. And when I see how the COVID-19 crisis was managed, I'm angry. I'm angry because I enter into politics here, but I was afraid of how things have been regulated, how people were maintained in a fear spirit. Well, it worried me, it concerned me a lot. It was a big concern. When you were telling that in terms of sports performance, it's often when you suffer a lot that you reach that mindfulness state or that state of grace. This intensification of fear has an objective, but maybe it will reach something they did not expect. Intensifying fear and stress, it will make people change. Things are changing. I am related to Ramkili. We have researchers of an incredible dimension who dare say things. Things are moving, but mediatically it is totally closed. The media do not talk about it. When I see in my environment, locally, in my family, when you try to explain what happens, you have the impression that the others get scared. And you can observe a cognitive tension. They wonder who they have to believe. I'm sort of, I don't feel well. I communicate on what I feel, but what we live is challenging, and it raises questions. I was talking with colleagues in Canada on philosophy at school, and they were saying that we have the impression it's crazy. There was no objective reason to go in that madness. The boomerang always comes back. Who should we believe? Well, grace should be the one to believe in. It is a movement that is growing, and this awareness is growing everywhere. Patricia says, what you say, what you're talking about right now is the crossing of the desert. At one point, you have the feeling that nothing is going to happen. Thank you, Raymond, for sharing all this. I'm very happy. And to participate in the movement through your experience. I know that sports and competition may be a paradox, but it's a way to know oneself. And of course, competition might not be good, but high-level sports people say that they do competition to know myself. And people I compete with are not real competitors. It's for me, it's they are competitors and not adversaries. I totally agree. Some sports, when I see how sports people exchange among themselves after the competition, it's beautiful. People do biathlon. This dimension is really beautiful. You gave the best of yourself, you respect each other, and sometimes you're as happy to see the joy of your competitor. You participate to their joy. It's beautiful. So part of the competition is new and different. It's the spirit that can be changed in competition. So this full intention leads you to something totally new. Dan Millman will share it with us. He will tell us how sports training was the starting point of his spiritual quest. Oh, okay. I was very much amazed by his book. Yes. If you know people who'd be interested. Thank you so much, Raymond, to have shared your experience. I believe a lot in the Little Rocks, and your initiative is part of it. And these are seeds that will grow, I believe. This paradigm shift will take place. Thank you so much. Have a nice evening, Raymond. In 10 minutes, we will continue with Satyana and children. I don't know where they come from, children from France and Quebec. Raymond, thank you so much.
Merci à vous. Au plaisir.
See you next time. Bye-bye.
Et bravo pour ce que vous faites.
And you're doing a fantastic job. Congratulations. Bye.